Hi there, my name is Alicia. I'm going to teach you Chinese language and culture. Welcome to Lesson 1, 第一课. Well, 第 here, it is an auxiliary word in Chinese for ordinal numbers. So 第一 means the first, 第二 means the second, and 第三 means the third. Well, in this video, we're going to focus on the Hanyu Pinyin, which means Chinese pronunciation. Hanyu, well, originally it means the Han language. In China, there are 56 ethnic groups, among which the Han people is the largest one, making up 90% of China's population. Well, due to the vast number of people speaking the Han language or Hanyu and Mandarin, it now refers to the official standard language in China, along with Zhongwen and Putonghua. So you see, Hanyu, Zhongwen, and Putonghua, they are just different names for the official standard language in China. Well, Pinyin, as we mentioned in last video, that it is not the written form of Chinese language, but only a tool to assist with the pronunciation. Well, in this video, we're going to discuss a lot of, not a lot, actually. We're going to discuss some rules and principles related to the Chinese pronunciation system. Please keep in mind that it is not necessary for you to memorize all the rules here, but it's better to have some knowledge of them, right? So basically, you can take the content in this video as the roadmap to guide your Chinese language studies in the future. Well, unlike English, Chinese is a syllable-structured language where each Chinese character typically represents one syllable. For instance, in this sentence, 我想念你们, the rhythm goes like da, 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 da. So it is very important to pronounce each syllable or the Chinese characters distinctly and clearly with pauses between words rather than within words. Okay, so here we can see 我 is a one character word. 想念 is a two character word, which means miss, and 你们 is also a two character word, means you guys. So the sentence would be pronounced as 我想念你们, 我想念你们. Otherwise, the pronunciation would be confusing or sound foreign, which might lead to misunderstanding. Okay, and this can be observed in the way the 40th President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, spoke Chinese.
He asked me to say for him, and I hope I can, 我想念大家.
Well, please note that my intention here is not to criticize President Reagan's Chinese pronunciation. In Mandarin, syllables are usually composed of an initial, a final, and a tone. Initials are consonants placed at the beginning of a syllable. A final is the second part of a syllable, which can be a vowel or a combination of vowels or consonants. And the tone. The tone, it's usually applied to the entire syllable. But please note that it is also possible for a syllable to have no initial in Chinese syllable. For example here, this syllable, the letter K, pronounced as K in Chinese, it's the initial, and the letter E, pronounced as in Chinese, serves as the final. And here, this mark, it is the tone, represents the fourth tone. Okay, so this syllable, it is pronounced as K, K. In this second example, it does not have the initial, as we can see here. It only has the final and the fourth tone. So this syllable, it is pronounced as All right, now let's take a closer look at the three components of Chinese syllables. Now let's look at the first component of Chinese pinyin or Chinese syllables, initials, which is 声母 in Chinese. There are 21 initials: bo, po, mo, fo, de, te, ne, le, ge, ke, he, ji, qi, xi, zi, si, si, zhi, ch, sh, r. Okay, now let's move on to the second component of Chinese syllables, the finals, which is 韵母 in Chinese, contain 39 members, including the simple finals, the compound finals, and the three special finals that only exist in fixed syllables. Okay. Now, I'm going to read you the 39 finals one by one so that you will have a general idea about how these sounds are generated. Okay. But please keep in mind that there is no necessary for you to memorize all these sounds now because we're going to learn them one by one in the future study. All right. Now here it begins. A, O, E, I, U, Ü, I, A, Ao, O, An, N, Ang, Eng, Ong, Ya, Yao, Ye, You, Yan, Yin, Yang, Ying, Yong, Wa, Wa, Wai, Wei, Wan, Wen, Wang, Weng, Yue, Yuan, Yun, and the three special finals. The first one, it's pretty rare in Chinese language actually. I think it's an interjection word like a, hey, all right? And these two here, they are spelled the same, but actually in linguistic field, they are written this way separately. This one, it's written this way in linguistic field, and this one that's written in this way. All right. So we never say these sound separately in Chinese, and also it's very hard to say them. So because they only exist in these fixed syllables. All right. So they are pronounced like this: zi, si, si, zi, si, si. And these four are zhi, chi, shi, r. And you might notice that when you pronounce these syllables, your tongue, it's like flat, and your tongue tip is right between behind your teeth, okay? Z, like this. It's actually right behind your lower teeth. Z, si, si. And when you say these four, and your tongue tip is rolled up, all right? It's rolled up like zhi, zhi, chi, shi, r. Okay. Well, now let's look at the four finals that marked red. Here, this one, it's yu. Well, it's a typical in Chinese pronunciation. You might notice that there is no such a letter on the keyboard. So when you type Chinese characters with the Chinese Pinyin system on the keyboard, and we usually use the letter V. Sorry, here. Let me fix it. We usually use the letter V to replace this letter to type the Chinese characters. All right, and these three, you see U. In these three, actually, one letter is omitted for the sake of simplicity or economy. For this one, U, the full spelling is supposed like this: I-O-U, U. So O is omitted, and this one, it's way. So it's U, I, U, I. U-E-I, so way here, the letter E is omitted. And this one, it's the full spelling is Wen, U-E-N. Again, the letter E is omitted. Just remember that all these, the three letters are omitted here in these finals, just for the sake of economy or simplicity. All right, so much for the 39 finals. Now let's move on to the spelling rules of the Chinese syllables. Okay, now the spelling rules of Pinyin or Chinese syllables. Well, the first rule is if there is no initial consonant before E, E then is written as a semi-vowel. Y, the letter Y, it's also pronounced E in Chinese. Okay, now let's take a look at these examples. Like these finals, ya, ye, yao, yo, yan, and when they form the Chinese syllables without an initial, and then the letter I will be replaced by the letter Y in the spelling system. Okay, and similarly here, ye, yao, yo, yan, yang, and this one, as we mentioned in the previous. Okay, here let me fix it. As we mentioned in the previous slide, that the full spelling for this final is I-O-U. When you replace this letter with a Y, and O appear again. So it's a yo, yes. And before the in and ying, we don't need to replace the letter I with the Y, just to add a Y. All right, just add another letter here. It's spelled in this way, in, and ying, it's spelled in this way, ying. All right, and that's the first rule. Rule number 2, if there is no initial consonant before yu, well, we just add a Y, the letter Y. Again, it's a semi-vowel, but it's pronounced as E in Chinese pronunciation system, all right? And then the 2 dots above the U will be omitted. All right, it might be difficult to understand by reading the theory here. Now let's take a look at example. Take a look at these examples. So here, if yu, yuan, yue, yun, when they form syllables without the initial, and the syllable would be spelled in this way. Yu, see, we need to add the letter Y in front of it, and then this letter, it will lose the 2 dots above it. All right, and this one, it will be spelled in this way: yuan, yue, yun. Now, rule number 3. The letter U becomes W if it is not preceded by an initial. Thus, here, like all these finals, when they form the Chinese syllables without an initial, and the spelling should be in this way, we should use the letter W to replace the letter U. But also, the pronunciation remain the same, just the spellings are different. Okay, so wa, wai, wan, wang, wei, wen, wong, wo. All right, here And as we mentioned earlier, so the way here, this final way, it's actually the full spelling is this way. In this way, the letter E is omitted just for the sake of economy or simplicity. But when we spell this syllable, we need to add the W. We need to replace this letter with the W, and the E here appear again. Similarly, here, when that's the full spelling of this final. E is omitted here, but again, when we formally spell this syllable, and the letter E shows again here. All right. So that's rule number 3 and rule number 4. The 2 dots above U are omitted if it is immediately preceded by the initials ji, qi, xi. For example, so U here, it is preceded by the initial ji, qi, xi, right? But we don't spell them this way in Chinese syllable or Chinese pronunciation system. When we formally spell the pronunciation, and the 2 dots will be omitted, okay? But the pronunciation still remain the same. Ju, chu, shu. All right. And rule number 5. In order to avoid confusion, an apostrophe is used to separate two syllables with connecting vowels. I mean, the connecting vowels can be taken as one syllable for some people, especially for the foreign learners. So that's why we need to use the apostrophe to separate, to avoid the confusion here. Now, this example, 女儿, which means daughter in Chinese. So 女, 1 syllable, 儿, it's another syllable. All right. So we use this apostrophe to separate the 2 vowels, 女儿. And similarly, the city, ancient city, Xi'an. Well, Xi is a syllable, An is another syllable. We use this apostrophe, Xi'an, so that we know it's 2 syllables, Xi'an. Well, by the way, Xi'an is the ancient place where you visit the terracotta warriors. Oh, you probably have known that. Okay, now sometimes an apostrophe is also needed when there are confusions, even if the 2 syllables are not connected by vowels. For example, here, 妨碍 means to hinder in Chinese, 妨碍. Because it might be confusing, because without the apostrophe, let's see, without the apostrophe, people might read it as 妨盖. Oh, well, I don't know what word that is. But anyway, in order to avoid this confusion, we need to use this apostrophe to separate the 2 syllables so that we know 妨 is 1 syllable and 爱 is another syllable, right? 妨碍, which means hinder in Chinese. And similarly, next one is 方案, which means plan or scheme. Again, if we don't use the apostrophe to separate the 2 syllables, well, some people might pronounce it as 方干, right? 方干. So that's why the apostrophe should be adopted here. 方案, it's a 方案, all right? Okay, so that's the 5 basic spelling rules of Chinese syllables, all right? I mean, it's just the general knowledge of it, and it might be confusing to understand it at the very beginning, but don't worry about it. Well, as we continue learning the language, and it will become easier and easier. Okay, now let's discuss the 3rd component of the Chinese pinyin or syllables, tones, which is 声调 in Chinese. Well, in Chinese, there are actually 4 main tones and 1 neutral tone. So that's 5 tones in total. We usually use the 5 lines here in this chart to indicate the changes of the pitch. So the first pitch 1, pitch 2, and also to pitch 5. It's from the lowest pitch to the highest pitch. So the first tone, it's the high level tone, okay? So the high level tone with a pitch value 5, 5. And as we mentioned earlier, the tones are usually applied to the whole syllable, okay? And if we apply the first tone, to the syllable it would sound like and the tone mark it's a short line, okay? High level, so that's the first tone, high level tone, and with a mark like this. The second tone, it's the rising tone because your pitch, the voice pitch, it rises from a relatively lower pitch to a higher pitch. So the pitch value is 3, 5, all right? And if we apply the second tone to the syllable it goes like all right? The rising tone. So this one, it's the mark of the second tone. The third tone, it's a little bit complicated because your pitch, it would drop first and then it rises again to a higher level, a higher pitch. So the pitch value is 2, 1, 4. As we can see here, it drops from 2 to 1 and rises to 4 again. It goes like if we apply the tone apply the third tone to this syllable. All right, the mark of the third tone, it's like the letter V, All right, but interestingly, in normal speech, the third tone always sounds like a half third tone. All right, in normal speech, the full third tone always, most of the time, it sounds like a half third tone, like All right, now the last main tone is the falling tone with the value of 5, 1, because your pitch, it drops from the highest to the lowest. So if we apply the fourth tone to this syllable, it goes like this. All right, so this is the mark. This is the mark of the fourth tone. All right, very good. Except all these 4 main tones, there is also a neutral tone in Chinese. Neutral tone words include, well, usually it include 2 types. The first one, it's the question particle or question indicator, like the word ma. As in the sentence 你好吗 means how are you, okay? 你好吗? So here, ma, it's a question indicator, and then it's a neutral tone here. The second type of neutral tone is that the unstressed syllable, like the second ba in 爸爸, the second ba in 爸爸, and also the second ma in 妈妈. So the second ba and the second ma, they are unstressed syllables. Neutral tone syllables, they don't have a tone mark, right? And also, please keep in mind that the tones are very, very important in Chinese because they can change the meanings. For example, if you say this syllable ma in different tones, you mean different things. Like the first tone, it means ma, it means mom. The second tone, ma, means hemp. the third tone, ma, it means horse. Finally, ma means scold. I'm sorry. So ma, 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 ma. They carry completely different meanings. All right. And to practice the tones in Chinese, you can use tongue twisters. All right. You can use the tongue twisters to practice the tones, like this tongue twister: ma ma qi ma ma man, ma 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 ma. Oh, which literally means mom rides a horse and the horse is slow. Mom scolds the horse. Okay, well, my students, they always find the tongue twisters super fun to say. I hope you also enjoy the tongue twisters while practicing the Chinese tones. All right. Next, let's move on to the position of the tone marks. Tone marks are written above the main vowel of a syllable. So the main vowel can be identified according to the following sequence: a, o, e, u, yu. All right. For instance, in the final ao, the main vowel is a, so the tone will be written above this vowel: bao, 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 bao. And similarly, in the final a, the main vowel is the letter e. So we write the tone above the main vowel here, above the letter e, which is pronounced as in Chinese. And there is one exception though. When the letter I and U are combined into a syllable, the tone mark is written on the second vowel, like here, liu, dui. So no matter what, when the two letters are combined together to form a syllable, or part of a syllable, and then the tone is always written above the last letter. Okay, let's quickly recap what we have covered in this lesson. We mainly discussed the three components of Chinese pinyin or syllables: the initials, the finals, and the tones. The three components collectively represent the Chinese pronunciation. Except that, we also learned the five general spelling rules of pinyin. Please don't feel overwhelmed by the amount of information, as it is not necessary for you to memorize all the rules and principles mentioned here. Okay, and also we are going to continue practicing them in the future. Well, thank you very much for watching this video. If you found it helpful for your Chinese language study, please give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel. See you later.